When we play it safe, we change the message that Jesus came to proclaim. See, at some point, the message of the early church was anchored to one thing. It was anchored to the event. In fact, in the first couple hundred years of the spread of Christianity, they didn't have the New Testament completed yet. It wasn't assembled together as a series of documents assembled together to proclaim that message. All they had to go on was, we followed this guy, Jesus. And if he was who he claimed to be, then he was the Messiah. And we believed that he was Messiah because he predicted his own death and his resurrection. And because of that, because he predicted his death and resurrection, which, by the way, 2,000 years later, we have incredible proof of those two events. The early church says we're going to galvanize around that idea. And that message is what we want to spread to the world around us. That Jesus, the Messiah, was dead and that he's alive. And because of his resurrection, he has defeated death. He's defeated sin. And now we want to proclaim that message to the world. We want that to be the thing we rally around. We want that to be the thing that we support. And we want that to be the message that the world begins to hear. Now, we fast forward a couple thousand years and we're living in the United States where we have a lot of freedoms. And I'm thankful for those freedoms. But sometimes I think there's a message, whether intended or unintended, I'm not sure. But there's a message change. You see, if we were to ask the average person today, I won't ask the average person in Ridgepoint Church, that might be a different answer entirely. Hopefully. But if we were to ask the average person on the street today, what does it mean to be a Christian? They'd probably say some things like, well, I guess if you're a Christian, it means, I don't know, you go to church. I guess if you're a Christian, you probably do some good things. You probably read your Bible. You probably pray a little bit. There's probably some things that you don't do. There's some things, I don't know what they are, but I know there's some things that Christians aren't supposed to do. And so the old adage was that you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't chew, and you don't date girls who do. Something like that. And Christianity became known as this idea that Jesus came to deliver people from being really, really bad to maybe marginally bad, or maybe even Jesus came to make them good. And at some point, we made Christianity, I don't think it was an intended shift. I don't think that it was intentional at all. But unintentionally, we started to make the message of Jesus about, well, if I could just start to take some of the bad things out of my life and start to replace them with some of the good things, that's what being a Christian is. And I know that because if you were to ask someone right now, hey, would you want to go to church with me? You know what the number one question people ask? If you invite them to go to church, you know what the number one question they have for you is? What do I need to wear? Like, if I go to church, what do I need to wear? Now, I know culture is changing a little bit, and most churches are starting to adopt that you don't have to come into church. But for me, when I was 19 years old and my friend Jack invited me to church, it was expected. For a young guy who was in college who had no money at all, it was expected. If you're going to show up at church, you're supposed to wear, like, if you're spiritual, if you're really spiritual, you're going to be wearing a suit and a tie. And so I went through the motions of adopting that, thinking that's how it's supposed to be. And so I went out and I bought a pair of pants and a dress shirt and a tie and this really, really ugly jacket. My wife can attest to how ugly that jacket was. That's kind of, I think, what church folk was doing back then. I bought this ugly jacket, and I started going to church because I thought, man, this is what it means. This is what it's about. I'm going to start to go to church. My friend invited me to go to church, and I asked Jack, I'll go to church with you, but how should I dress? Listen, here's the thing. That's not what makes a person a Christian. However people want to dress, they should feel comfortable coming to church to dress that way. We say, well, don't wear those hoochie mama shorts at church. And I say, you know what? Jesus didn't ask the woman at the well to change before he came to her. And we shouldn't either.